So training the trainers is specific in the regard of who is attending it and with what goal. So at TTT, as one of my colleagues said, so training the trainers is that what teachers are learning in 4 years, maybe teacher preparatory program, so in pedagogic faculties for maybe 4 years, and we are trying to squeeze the most important aspects in only 5 days. So it means that we're going through all the basics of learning, all the basics of also principles on which learning is based, and we're following the so-called non-formal education as our main goal, because we all understand that most of our trainees who are going to train further, they will be working with adults. So there are also some slight specifics in adult education, which is also a difference in regard to any other training. Any other training can be on specific topics, contents. Here we try to focus on what is important in designing and conducting successful educational intervention.
Бизге өткөн тренинг абдан өнүгүү, жемиштүү болду. Абдан көп жаңы методдорду, ыкмаларды,
Yes, if possible, so we can.
Ошол аудитория кантип ошону баары камсыз кылганга ошонун баарына үйрөндүк. Мен ойлойм, мен жеке өзүмдүн аудиториямды биринчиден кеңейтсем болот, тренингдин сапатын өйдөрөөк көтөрсөм болот, жана ар кандай тренерлерди ар кандай методдор менен, тренингтерди ар кандай методдор менен аудиторияга жеткизсем болот. Албетте муну абдан кеңири мен колдоном. Эң жаккан нерсеси бул тренер өзүнүн мисалында тренингди кантип пландаштырып, кантип даярданып, кантип жеткиргенге, кандай ар кайсы методдор менен, жолдор менен жеткиргенге ошол жери жакты. Жакпаган бир дагы нерсе болгон жок. Анткени тренингдин ар бир күнү, ар бир сааты, ар бир мүнөтү абдан пайдалуу болду. Анан бир дагы жолу мындай ушул жак болбой, жакпай калды, ушул жак болбой эле койсо болмок деген бир дагы ой келген жок.
Well, I think that some of the most important aspects in a TTT are actually understanding the experiential learning cycle. For me, it is really the philosophy and the biggest aha moment that I have seen in so many eyes of my participants all over the world where I have been providing this training. It's the moment when participants understand that to learn something, it's not enough just to understand the theory or to be able to somehow repeat it, but it is much more important for us as trainers to be able to create experiences. So our job is not so much to teach and to know everything, but it is much more important to create experiential moments that will help our participants to experience those topics and situations themselves. In that way, they will be capable to analyze, so to reflect their experience, and for this, of course, we need the trainers to be able to ask the right questions and then to lead those questions into some conclusions that can be applied and tested in the reality when our trainees are back in their everyday lives. So first of all, I was very grateful to the group with whom I had the pleasure to work in the past 5 days, because I had really some very experienced people who already had given some trainings in their professional lives. That's why it was also very interesting to hear their experiences and to discuss about some real-life cases that were bothering them and they were looking answers to. So we spent quite some time to reflect, discuss, and look for those answers. And of course, my job was to make it as structured as possible so that we can really have the chance to talk to each other, have the chance for everyone to be engaged, and that everyone can be included in this discussion, because every time when you have more than, let's say, 3 people, there is a risk that somebody will not get this possibility. So of course this is my job then to facilitate the discussions using different methodologies, whether it's a world cafe, whether it's also maybe some energizing moments, or also some even silent or power brainstorming that we have done. So this helps us to really get down to the core of the idea, and maybe not necessarily always speak, but also sometimes write, visualize, or symbolize what we have to say. How non-formal education is different and maybe even more effective than formal. So I'm a big believer in the effectiveness of non-formal education. And the difference between formal and non-formal education lies in the fact who is the education provider. So in formal education cases, we know that we talk about schools, universities, and similar institutions that are providing us with years of learning and teaching curricula. In some cases, it's mandatory for us to go there. And in non-formal education, it is all voluntarily, based on active participation, and it's also based on some values like respecting human rights, non-discriminating, and democracy. So that's why I think non-formal education is effective by itself, because the participants whom are you having in your training environment, they're coming on their own will. So you always have the possibility to work with maybe some less active participants or less motivated ones, and engage them in different ways, or if you feel that there is something wrong, because the person is just in the wrong place, and that's totally fine if they don't attend this educational activity. So this is the core difference, and I think that in such a way, when we share the responsibility, and it's not only the trainer or informal education teacher who is, the most responsible of whether my students will learn something, I think sharing this responsibility is the key, because that shows that also me as a participant, I have the responsibility on how much I will learn. But here we also need to be clear about the methodology that trainers are using. So in formal education, we do tend to have a lot of frontal methods that are also so-called trainer-centered. And in non-formal education, we always say that the balance should be on the bigger side on trainee or participant-centered approaches, which are always interactive, which are maybe based on experience, which are maybe looks like a little game, but actually there is a big learning happening in the background when we start reflecting on it. So I think in this way it becomes also a more effective way of learning.